Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. It's good to be back with you for these live briefings after our Passover hiatus. For those of you who were wondering where we were the past week and a half or so, it was Passover. We went on a break, and we sent out our schedule and details in both our emails as well as our WhatsApp group. So if you didn't receive any emails or WhatsApps and you're wondering what's happening, this is a great opportunity to join our mailing list, join our WhatsApp group, so you're always in touch with what is happening. And over the past week and a half, we did have 2 YouTube premiere briefings that were done from the Gaza border, some very profound and intense stories, one of which was from Brigadier General Oren Solomon, who was one of the first responders at the Nova Festival, and his story went out in a briefing we did last week on YouTube. If you missed it, it is absolutely worthwhile to check that out. Today, I'm joined, of course, by Brigadier General Amir Avivi, the founder and chairman of IDSF. General Avivi, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Moshe. I hope everybody had a great Passover. I think, we are in a very defining moment in this war. Everybody thought that that's it, we're going into Rafah. The IDF has prepared 2 divisions that fully prepared to go in, Division 98 and Division 162. These divisions did all the preparations needed in order to start the ground incursion into Rafah. The army, in order to enable that, brought 2 reserve brigades and Division 99 that replaced Division 162 in the north and center of Gaza, and they are now operating in this area. Unfortunately, this division had an incident where accidentally a tank shot a house and 2 of our soldiers were killed, reserve soldiers. So basically, the army is ready for Rafah, and Division 99 is continuously attacking with the Air Force and the ground forces, terror infrastructure in the central camps, in the northern part of Gaza. So the war continues. But as we understand, there is a hostage deal that is being discussed. Israel insisted at the beginning to receive at least 40 hostages, then retreated from this position to 33. There are many publications that I'm not sure are representing the real discussion. People are talking about end of the war, about 1 year of stopping the war, and so on. I don't think this is what the intention of the government is, but we have been surprised in the past, so we'll see. During the Passover, I had a chance to speak with the Minister of Finance, Smotrich. Wanted to understand his perspective about a possible deal and the dangers that might be. Obviously, it's crystal clear to me, to all our generals in IDSF, that if we don't go into Rafah, we're losing the war. That Hamas will be able to rebuild itself, and everything we did, all the sacrifice, all the soldiers that were killed will be for nothing. It's not something we can accept. The Prime Minister is saying, with or without a deal, we're going into Rafah. He's saying that constantly. He said that yesterday in a meeting with Ben Gvir. Also, Gantz referred to that, saying that he wants to see a deal, but he understands that we need to go into Rafah. So we need to wait and see what exactly this deal is and if Hamas accepts it. And it's not something that we can really know at the moment. We have to wait. And they're talking about 40 days of ceasefire. 33 hostages that will be released, mostly women, injured people, old people. Israel will enable children and women and elderly people to go back to the northern part of Gaza, but it's not going to give up control of who can go into the north of Gaza. And of course, there will be a release of terrorists from jail. This is what is being discussed. So at the moment, it's two options: or Hamas will completely agree to the deal, and this is what will happen. And then we have to pray and hope that after 40 days we'll be able to renew the attack. Of course, this will bring a heavy price because Hamas is going to have a lot of time to organize. And we're also in IDSF, we are worried that they will use these 40 days to move the remaining hostages to Sinai Peninsula and from there to Iran. It's something that I'm not clear how exactly Israel can prevent that. And this is something the government needs to take in account when they take these decisions. This is a crucial moment, and it will also impact the north, because as long as we're not going into Rafah and we're not finishing the job in Gaza, we're not going to move all the forces to the north and deal with Hezbollah. One of the big questions is, what is the administration's position? Because at the beginning, everybody agreed, Europe, the US, that Hamas needs to be destroyed. It's crystal clear that Hamas cannot be destroyed without conquering Rafah. And now the position seems to be not going into Rafah. And President Biden has spoke more than once about that. And I think there's a need to try to understand what is the motivation. Why don't they want us to go to Rafah? We'll lose the war. And I've thought about it a lot. I think that the way the administration is looking at it, basically they're saying our motivation as the administration is basically to have quiet. I mean, the US is going to elections. The interest is not to have any war, to quiet things. So from the administration's perspective, if they can get a ceasefire that is going to be very long, and obviously if there is a ceasefire in Gaza, there will be also a ceasefire in the north, and then they'll push a deal with Saudi Arabia, and they show they also can bring peace. And sounds great, but there's only one problem. Hamas is going to rebuild themselves. We won't be able to bring back our hostages, our citizens back to the north. We'll still have many, many hostages in Hamas hands. And this will be devastating for Israel's security. So our interests are not aligned. The Israeli interest should be to destroy Hamas as soon as possible, to release all the hostages, and this is all dependent on Rafah. The leadership of Hamas is in Rafah. The hostages are in Rafah. Our ability to stop the buildup of force in Gaza is in Rafah, on the Egyptian border. So we need to go in and destroy Hamas and release all the hostages, 100% of them, not part of them. And then we need to take the army north and deal with Hezbollah. This is what the Israeli interest should be. It's not aligned with the administration's interest to really quiet things and have the elections. Now, it's interesting to see in the US that the polls, looking at what generally the American society thinks, most of them, 80%, support Israel and think Israel should go to Rafah. And I think to a certain extent, we see even in the latest polls, looking at what's the situation between Trump and Biden, that Biden is not getting stronger by not taking care of Israel interests. It seems that it's not really helping. So I'm hoping that there will be a change. I think that there is a huge pressure on the Israeli government. ICC is planning to have arrest warrants against our leaders and the chief of staff. The US can stop it in a minute, but they're not doing so. At the moment, they're pressuring Israel. And of course, there is pressure from the administration. They're pressuring also through organizations in Israel. And I spent time in the Negev, and when I drove with my family back north, I stopped at Ben Gurion's tomb, and I made a video there, and I said, this is a Ben Gurionistic moment. This is a moment where our leadership needs to really do the right things for the people of Israel and stand against this pressure and do the right thing. The right thing is to go to Rafah and destroy Hamas. And I think this is really what we expect from leadership, to be strong, to do the right thing for the people of Israel and the Jewish people, and secure our country. And I know that no matter how much pressure there is, when we do what's right for us, the countries in the world will respect it. At the end of the day, they will respect our ability to defend ourselves and do the right thing. So we are in constant talk with the government, and we're planning to meet the coming days, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense again, to make sure that we are on our path to win and not surrender. We're going to launch a big campaign, hopefully, soon, uniting the people, calling for victory, and to really move towards securing Israel. Meanwhile, we're every day really all over the place on TV, having conventions all over the country, doing a lot of activities to strengthen the society and to communicate really what's going on and what needs to be done. Moshe?
Thank you, General, for sharing all of that. The whole issue about the ground incursion in Rafah, we've been discussing this since the end of February. And this delay, this hope for a ceasefire has been more than 60 days now. What is really the hang-up? Where is the issue? Is it with the IDF leadership? Is it with the government as a whole? Is it with specific people within the government? What is taking so long at this point, 60 days into discussions of going into Rafah?
I think it's a combination. It started with the IDF, mainly dealing with the way they're handling the forces, munitions, and things like that. But this pretty much solved itself. The IDF is ready for the ground incursion. There is huge pressure from the administration. We see this pressure mounting with the ICC threatening our leaders and their commanders. The level that the administration is intervening in what's happening is unprecedented. It's making things very hard. And the problem is that if the cabinet doesn't stand together and strong, then it's harder to push this pressure. I mean, we saw that when the administration said they're going to impose sanctions on IDF battalions, immediately all the leadership united. They said, we're not going to agree to this. They all backed up the battalions. And as a result, the administration withdrew from this action. So when we are united, there is no force on this globe that can stand in front of us. But when we are not united, and some of the people in the cabinet are inclined to more look at US interests than Israeli interests, And then it's harder. It's much, much harder to do the right thing. But I think that really it's a defining moment, and I really, really expect our leaders to understand that and unite. Now, in a way, we're in the hands of Hamas. I mean, we're all waiting to see what Hamas decides. They want a deal or not. If they'll reject the deal, then we'll go to Rafah. If not, then we'll have to see exactly what the deal is and hope that after 40 days, the IDF will renew its attack.
Now, you are an expert in Gaza, having previously commanded the Gaza division. In your opinion, would things be different right now if the whole operation was backwards and first they went into Rafah and saved the north of Gaza for last? Would that have changed things?
I think that the big mistake was when we went into Khan Yunis that it didn't go at the same time to Rafah. Now, this may be required to prolong the service of some of our units in reserve, but that was the right thing to do, to attack simultaneously and close the Egyptian border. And then really we would have controlled completely the Gaza Strip. Then what happens in the center, that's just now to clean what remains. And I wrote that if we don't go into Rafah and we lose, I think that the investigations following this war will, not only the 7th of October will be the huge failure, but the way they handled the war. But still, we can win. The good news is that we control our destiny. It's about us. We have to decide the right decisions. It's completely dependent on Israel. Israel is able to take the right decisions and do what is needed. And we haven't had this privilege for thousands of years. Now we do. And this is what we expect from the leadership.
In terms of what might await the IDF soldiers when they do go into Rafah, what do we know about the smuggling from Egypt or the tunnel infrastructure in the Philadelphia corridor?
When I was combat engineer officer of the Gaza Strip in 1997, long ago, we found 35 tunnels connecting Rafah on the Gazan side to Rafah on the Egyptian side, already then in 97. And these were much smaller, much less sophisticated, much less deep tunnels than what there is today. Today, we estimate, I think it's around 38 huge tunnels that connect Egypt to Gaza, an endless amount of weapons, know-how, technology, money. Operatives are moving through these tunnels. I think that part of the reason that the Egyptians are doing everything they can to prevent this ground incursion is that they'll have to deal with what we'll find there and the pictures and everything that the world will see when we go into this border and see how many tunnels are active there.
As we wait for this ground incursion, Hamas terrorists are returning to the north of Gaza. And I know we've spoken about this issue ad nauseum. Many claim that this shows the ineffectiveness of the IDF, and I know you have a different understanding of Hamas operating in the north of Gaza. So are you able to address this issue again so that everyone can understand really what it means to destroy Hamas?
Oh, I think that we'll all remember when the US did this huge ground incursion into Iraq. And really, in a few days, the Iraqi army collapsed. And following that, also, they found Saddam Hussein and executed him. So supposedly, after all of that, they've said that that's it. But no, following that, 3,000 American soldiers died after this ground incursion in the phase where the U.S. had to control Iraq. And then they started dealing with improvised explosive devices and attacks along the road and attacks on bases and so on. So in modern warfare, there are two stages. One is the ground incursion, is the beginning where you destroy the battalions, the brigades, the companies. You break the ability of the enemy to operate as a unit. But then what happens is that, okay, you kill many terrorists, but others disperse. And then you have to change way of operation from attack to raids. And then continuously raid according to very accurate intelligence to continuously degrade the terror infrastructure in the area. In the northern part of Gaza, we did a ground incursion. We conquered all of north of Gaza. We killed many, many terrorists, but others dispersed. And now they're regrouping in several places. And each time they regroup, we raid this place and we destroy them or arrest them. And this will be a long warfare. It can take years. It's not something that's going to be short. Therefore, when the government says we are going to destroy Hamas as a governmental and military entity, it's not saying we are going to kill 100% of all the terrorists and there will be zero terror in Gaza. This is something that can take years. But to bring down Hamas as an entity that governs Gaza and has a military in Gaza, this can be done once we go into Rafah and into the last strongholds in the central camps in Deir el-Balah, which we didn't conquer yet.
In the years leading up to the Oslo Accords, there was this push to have the IDF leave Gaza because people didn't want to see casualties in a prolonged IDF operational presence in Gaza. Is there a concern we would repeat that same failed history, that it's going to take time to clean up Gaza, and at a certain point, Israeli society or leadership will say, enough is enough?
Yeah, we tend to have short memory. And I think that we really have to have an in-depth discussion about what is the long-term strategy, national security approach. This is exactly what we do in IDSF. This is what the book I published is all about. And now by, I think, August or Rosh Hashanah, it's going to be published in English. It talks about what is the right terms needed to secure Israel for generations to come. And what is needed is full responsibility of Israel and the IDF over all of the land of Israel, from the river to the sea, as the Goyim say. And we need full freedom of operation everywhere for the IDF and the ability to foil attacks. And then, if we have that, we can talk about how Palestinians will manage themselves on the civil side, but we cannot have a reality where there is a build-up terror in a place and the IDF cannot operate and deal with this.
Thank you, General Avivi, for sharing all of this and really allowing us to deep dive into what's happening in Gaza. It's been a good while since we discussed all of this. And thank you, of course, to all of our viewers for tuning into this briefing, joining us again after our Passover break. There's, of course, been a lot of discussion in the news about the ICC. So tomorrow we have an expert, Yifa Segal, who's going to discuss that issue. So for everyone who's sending in questions about the ICC, stay tuned for tomorrow. And of course, we have so much more to unpack about Lebanon, about the Saudis, and of course, about Iran. General, do you have any parting words for us in today's briefing before we close out?
Yes, I'm still optimistic. I think, again, we are controlling our own destiny. And really, what we all need to do is strengthen the cabinet, the army, and the society, and continue the path towards victory. Maybe it's hard, it's long, but we'll arrive there eventually.
Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you so much for joining this briefing. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. here in Israel. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.